have low vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Will Evans, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from current issues of the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Leading off, Go Bike proposing new Falls route in North End. A new biking corridor is being proposed in the north end of Niagara Falls, helping to better connect the Highland neighborhood with nearby trails. Go Bike, the Buffalo organization working to create biking mobility options throughout western New York, is working to create a less than a mile route. It would start at D'Amelio Park, then travel along Garden Avenue and 10th Street before ending at the intersection of Main Street and Depot Avenue West, next to the Niagara Falls Amtrak station. From there, this corridor would connect to the trails running alongside the Niagara Gorge. Kat Stower, a grant writer and development manager for Go Bike, said the project rose out of extensive community outreach in that part of the city and conversations with now City Council member Chairman Brian Archie. This route was part of a bike master plan Go Bike did for the city in 2019, which was meant to create new connections between the city's different areas of green space. Once we receive funding, our process is to work with the community, Stower said, adding there would be further public meetings about how this corridor would be developed. We are in a constant feedback loop of listening to them first about their concerns, leading this interactive hands-on process. The project application for Niagara River Greenway Commission funding describes this corridor as one element of a holistic set of projects Go Bike is proposing for the Highland community, increasing safe connections between this neighborhood and the Niagara River Greenway trail and park system. The proposed North End Safety Corridor will play an absolutely essential role in our goal of creating safer pathways between underserved residents in Niagara Falls and their own green space through low-cost, quick-build treatments, the application reads. Other possible future projects include a traffic garden at the corner of Calumet and Highland Avenues, which would be a space for new cyclists to practice road safety skills. To fund this, Go Bike plans on asking the Niagara River Greenway Commission's host community standing committee for $50,000, which meets in March after its January meeting was canceled. The organization also plans on using $27,500 of its own assets, $25,000 from the Western New York Health Foundation, and $9,935 from the Niagara Area Foundation for the remaining funds. Depending on funding availability, the corridor would be fully installed by the early summer of 2027. Through Go Bike's existing outreach efforts throughout the city, around 60% of residents feel unsafe riding their bikes through the city, mainly due to a lack of appropriate bike infrastructure. There is also interest in increasing access to the Niagara River and state parks areas. The organization also has a database tracking nearly 200,000 crashes involving vehicles, bicyclists, and pedestrians in Erie, Niagara, Chautauqua, and Cattaraugus counties since 2018. Along the proposed corridor, there have been 21 crashes in that time frame, with 4 resulting in injuries and no fatalities. If you put in those options for streetscapes, you do create those community ties, giving older adults more confidence to walk from place to place, said Go Bike Deputy Director Kevin Heffernan. When roads are full of speeding cars, people will stay home and can only drive from place to place. You cannot create a strong neighborhood. The corridor is still in the design phase, with plans for what to do still in community discussion. Temporary paint treatments added to the road can last between 1 and 7 years based on the durability of the paint used and standard wear conditions. Past work Go Bike has done in Niagara Falls includes having a local artist add road artwork to the intersection of Monteagle and Main Streets as an effort to get cars to slow down, though the paint used has faded since that was done in September 2022. Elsewhere, the Niagara Falls National Heritage Area adopted street art at the five-way intersection of Portage Road and Main Street this past fall to better regulate traffic flow. From the opinion page now, our headline is, "Are Your Legs Broken?" Why? Are your legs broken? That was the answer those of us of a different, meaning older, generation got when we badgered our parents for a ride somewhere. We had two legs, we had bikes, we had sidewalks. Get going. Cold and snowy weather or triple-digit heat didn't work in our favor either, often because that's the weather our parents worked in during the day. So, denied sympathy, we walked, we rode, and we ran. To school and after school, to practice and after practice, to hang out with friends. Not so today. Only about 1 in 4 high school students get the recommended hour a day of physical activity, according to the American Heart Association. And then there's this, from the University of Kansas Medical Center. The Physical Activity Alliance, the nation's largest national coalition dedicated to advancing regular participation in physical activity, has released the 2024 United States Report Card on Physical Activity for Children and Youth. The overall physical activity grade for children and youth remained low at D-, the same grade it received in 2022 when the last report was issued. Only 20 to 28% of 6 to 17-year-olds meet the 60 minutes of daily physical activity recommended by the U.S. Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans. Okay, so we know things have changed. The question is, where do we go from here? Well, one Missouri lawmaker, State Representative Bishop Davidson, Republican from Republic, has a bill that would require all students to participate in a minimum of 60 minutes of physical activity each school day. That could include PE classes, recess, and other supervised physical activities. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services recommends that children and adolescents ages 6 to 17 do 60 minutes or more of moderate to vigorous physical activity daily. Besides the obvious benefits to physical health and our national obesity epidemic, that level of exercise has brain benefits, improved cognition, academic performance, memory, and reduced symptoms of depression. Shape America, the Society of Health and Physical Educators, recommends every student take daily physical education in grades K through 12, with instruction periods totaling 150 minutes per week in elementary and 225 minutes per week in middle and high school. On its face, we see nothing wrong with the bill, but recognize that school days have become packed with a lot of other legislative requirements in recent years, so much so that finding time in the school day for physical activity might be problematic. While we don't necessarily favor more mandates on educators, we do agree with the goal and urge school boards to consider these guidelines. Ultimately, though, making sure our children keep moving is up to parents. And maybe it begins with asking them the question, are your legs broken? But it's okay for kids to turn the tables and ask their parents to come too, for a walk, for a run, for a ride. It's up to us to model the behavior we want in our children. Our legs aren't broken either. And our next article celebrates the United States semi-quincentennial and carries the headline, Founders and Guardian, Jackie Robinson. Jack Roosevelt Robinson was born on Friday, January 31st, 1919, in Cairo, Georgia, where his family sharecropped. The following year, when his parents separated, his mother and her 5 children relocated to Pasadena, California. Jackie, the youngest child, was educated in the public schools of Pasadena, Pasadena Junior College, and UCLA, where he lettered in football, basketball, track and field, and baseball. Jackie's older brother, Mac, was an extraordinary sprinter who won a silver medal in the 1936 Olympic Games in Germany. He finished just behind the American gold medalist, Jesse Owens. In addition to being an athletic role model for Jackie, Mac's community leadership in Pasadena inspired Jackie's dedication to ending racial injustice and advancing human rights. Robinson met his wife in 1941 at UCLA. Rachel Isom was a nursing student. They married in 1946, and they had 3 children. She was an enduring source of support for her husband, both on and off the field. During his service in World War II, Robinson took a stand against the injustices of racial segregation on military buses. He was arrested and court-martialed. A court-martial board acquitted him, and he was given an honorable discharge. That incident was a foretaste of the impact he would have on the civil rights movement throughout the rest of his life. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that Robinson was a freedom rider before there were freedom rides. Robinson began his professional baseball career in 1945 with the Kansas City Monarchs of the Negro Leagues. Later that same year, he signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers. Branch Rickey, president of the Dodgers, signed Robinson and assigned him to the Montreal Royals, a Dodgers farm team. Rickey knew that breaking the color barrier in professional baseball was not going to be easy, either for the team or the player who would do it. Rickey warned Robinson of the challenges he would face from fans, opposing teams, the press, and even his own teammates. Jackie agreed that he would neither resist nor fight back. Based on his showing in his first season with the Royals, he was promoted to the Major League's roster for the 1947 season. On April 15, 1947, at Ebbets Field, home of the Brooklyn Dodgers, Jackie Robinson began his Major League career. That day and in that place, he broke the racial barrier that existed in the modern era of the great American pastime. During his initial season, he responded to racial prejudice and bigotry with amazing restraint. He showed remarkable commitment to the game, his team, and the cause of racial equality, while demonstrating an amazing degree of baseball talent. He batted .297 with 12 home runs as a rookie. He led the National League in stolen bases and was named Rookie of the Year. During his 10 seasons with the Dodgers, he had a batting average of .311, won the Most Valuable Player award in 1949, and powered the Dodgers to a 1955 World Championship. He played in 6 World Series and was named to the All-Star team 6 times. Robinson retired from baseball following the 1956 season. After a legendary baseball career, Robinson was an active champion in the growing movement for racial justice and equality in the United States. He was a highly regarded member and a respected voice for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. He and his family participated in the August 1968 March on Washington, led by Martin Luther King Jr. Reflecting on that day, Robinson expressed great pride in his racial heritage and in being an American. As a journalist, Jackie's syndicated column, Jackie Robinson Says, focused on political engagement, civil rights advocacy, and sports. In 1965, he joined ABC Television as a Major League Baseball analyst and broadcaster. Number 42 also made his mark as a respected business person. He served as the vice president of the Chock Full of Nuts Coffee Company and was the chair of the NAACP's Freedom Fund Drive. As an entrepreneur, he was a co-founder of a bank in Harlem, and he opened a construction company focused on low-income housing initiatives. For the last years of his life, Robinson struggled with the effects of diabetes. He died in 1972 at the age of 53. The committed freedom rider was laid to rest at Cypress Hills Cemetery in New York, New York. The advancements Robinson brought to both sports and society stand as his enduring legacy. He has been honored time and again, not only for what he did, but also for how he did it. For his numerous achievements, Robinson received the NAACP's Spring Iron Medal in 1956. In 1962, he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame on the first ballot, breaking yet another racial barrier. President Ronald Reagan posthumously awarded Robinson the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1984, noting that Robinson struck a mighty blow for equality, freedom, and the American way of life. In 1997, on the 50th anniversary of his debut with the Dodgers, his jersey number 42 was retired from baseball throughout the leagues. In 2005, Robinson was posthumously awarded the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor. Each year, on April 15th, every Major League Baseball player wears number 42 to commemorate Jackie Robinson Day. On that day, Robinson is remembered as a committed leader who made a difference. On that day, Jack Roosevelt Robinson is honored as a person who changed the times in which he lived and the future instead of just passively watching from the grandstands. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Next up now is a commentary piece written by Craig W. Turner, who is Interim Executive Director for the Niagara USA Chamber of Commerce. The Niagara USA Chamber's advocacy agenda can be found at www.niagarachamber.org. How local business community finds its voice. On our Niagara USA Chamber of Commerce website, we describe ourselves as the voice of the business community. That phrase gets used a lot in chamber work, but it's always worth asking an obvious question. How does a chamber actually become that voice? The answer is simple, but not easy. The business community tells us what it wants us to say. Advocacy doesn't start in Albany, Washington, or City Hall. It starts here with employers, owners, operators, and managers who are living the real-world consequences and benefits, let's be fair, of policy decisions every day. Our role is to listen carefully, organize those insights, and translate them into clear, credible positions that can be carried into policy conversations at the local, regional, state, and federal levels. Recently, we released our 2026 Advocacy Agenda to guide the Chamber's efforts on behalf of our members for the year. The important work behind it begins months before it's finalized and presented. Each fall, our advocacy committee, made up of business leaders from across Niagara County, rolls up its sleeves and digs in. We're not after chasing headlines or reacting to every bill that pops up, but to develop an agenda that is thoughtful, comprehensive, and flexible enough to hold up in a fast-moving policy environment. That flexibility is intentional and strategic. Rather than publishing a traditional legislative wish list, our chamber has chosen a principles-based approach. Legislation, regulations, and proposals have a way of evolving. They get amended, adjusted, refined, and sometimes rebranded entirely. A rigid checklist can quickly become outdated. Clear principles, on the other hand, act as a compass. At any given moment, a board or staff member may be asked a direct question. Where does the chamber stand on this issue? Our advocacy agenda gives us the ability to answer that question with clarity and credibility. If a proposal aligns with our members' priorities, we know how to engage constructively. If it conflicts, we know how and why to push back, without needing to reinvent the wheel each time the details shift. Advocacy itself takes many forms. Much of it happens quietly through one-on-one conversations and education, both of elected officials and the broader community. Chambers occupy a unique space. We have to know a little about a lot. The good thing is that we are surrounded by experts. When policymakers need to understand the practical implications of a regulation, tax change, or infrastructure proposal, the deep dive expertise they need is just a phone call away within our membership. We also advocate through our newsletter, social media, public hearings, and, yes, columns like this one. Niagara County is not interchangeable with anywhere else. Our economy is shaped by tourism and agriculture. We live and work at the border, so trade and border policy aren't abstract concepts here. We host critical energy infrastructure. which means energy policy looks different through a Niagara lens than it might elsewhere. Our businesses need a voice that understands those realities and can communicate them clearly to decision makers. Our advocacy agenda is how we do that, by listening first, grounding our work in shared principles, and carrying the business community's perspective forward all year long. Our next headline, Developing Situation, Mayor Austin Tylock emphasizes NT projects during State of the City. North Tonawanda has been on a building spree the past few years, working to attract new residents and businesses. During his State of the City address at the Riviera Theater, Mayor Austin Tylock emphasized some major residential and street developments to be completed or break ground this year. All the while, he said, the city has maintained balanced budgets without touching its growing reserves. North Tonawanda is a city that is moving forward, and it is doing so with intention, Tylock said on Tuesday. The progress we've made is real. It is visible in our neighborhoods, in our infrastructure, in our financial stability, and in the strength of our local economy. The city's 2026 budget, set at $48.3 million, has a projected sales tax revenue of $11.4 million, more than $500,000 above revenues from last year. Tylock said this reflects steady business growth in the city, with additional city revenues coming in from increased development activity, cannabis sales tax, gathering uncollected water and sewer charges, REM foreclosures, and increased performance at the Deerwood Golf Course. These revenue sources strengthen the city's financial position without shifting additional burden onto taxpayers, Tylock said, with the budget having homeowners pay less than $50 in additional taxes, allowing us to maintain services, invest responsibly, and continue rebuilding reserves. Among the new developments North Tonawanda residents can expect this year are the completion of the $2.3 million Sweeney Street bike path extension, which would connect Mayor's Park with the Botanical Gardens, realigning the 19th Street and Meadow Drive intersection, a $3.2 million walkability project for Oliver Street, and adding new sidewalks, seating areas, lighting, and green infrastructure, finishing construction at Charles Fleischman Park with a new clock tower, streetscape enhancements, and seating areas. Construction to start at the $8.4 million Payne Park Aquatic Center with a shallow play area, lap pool with diving boards, new locker rooms, and a concession stand. The city will start a pilot program this year, helping city residents with sidewalk repairs in front of their homes. The city has set aside $30,000 in funds to reimburse residents for 50% of eligible costs, given on a first-come, first-served basis. Tylock's most anticipated project is the 78 Bridge Street development on Tonawanda Island. The 80-unit mixed-use residential complex, the first new housing development on the island, now costing more than $30 million, is set to break ground this June and be completed by 2028. The city secured in December $2.5 million in Regional Economic Development Council funds to build out the infrastructure at the 3.3-acre site, with developer Visoni Company paying for any matching costs. The three-story building would have over 100,000 square feet of mixed-use development space along its waterfront, also receiving $750,000 in Downtown Revitalization Initiative funds to make its riverside frontage public. It supports not just 78 Bridge Street, but other adjacent parcels there, Tylock said. We look at the island as something that could be built out to $500 million. That also comes as Hamburg-based Alliance Homes looks to build nearly 190 units at 235 River Road, and People Inc. wants to turn a former bed tower for DeGraff Hospital into senior housing. Another area North Tonawanda will focus on this year, Tylock said, is going after neighborhood blight and absentee landlords. The city's rental registration and compliance program has registered 65% of rental properties, with fees generated going towards a new online platform for residents to submit code complaints, permits, contractor licenses, and rental registrations. Tylik even said his neighbors do not know who their landlord is. This is part of the program that we really need to understand who owns what properties, what safety features they have to include, and what code improvements, Tylik said. For the future, the city will hire an engineering firm to plan out 16,000 feet of cart paths at the Deerwood Golf Course. It is nearing completion of its study for redeveloping the Twin Cities Memorial Highway, which it hopes to fund with $30 million of federal grants. The city is also in talks with the County Land Bank, state agencies, and 2 interested partners for a $40 million redevelopment of the former Lowry Middle School into residential units or senior housing. Before the address started, nearly 70 union members with the city's Department of Public Works protested outside the theater before taking their seats inside. They are currently in the middle of contract negotiations with the city, looking for better wages in their contract. The mayor did acknowledge the union members in his speech, saying he would meet on Wednesday with both parties and that he felt they would be happy with the eventual outcome. Tylik ended his speech by saying this work has positioned the city to take on larger challenges, showing their state and federal partners that North Tonawanda is a city that gets results. I'm excited about what comes next, Tylik said, because the direction we are on positions our city for its strongest and most successful years ahead. Our next article is written by Niagara Falls School Superintendent Mark Laurie, Bright Days Ahead for Falls School Programs. As we enter February, we know that spring will soon arrive. It has been a very cold, snowy winter, but with longer, brighter days ahead, I hope to share much-needed sunshine and excitement with our Niagara Falls students and families through this article. Compounding on the incredible success of our Say Yes Niagara Falls Saturday Academies, we are very close to launching our paid apprenticeships for Niagara Falls High School students. These apprenticeships will expand and enhance our post-secondary pathways programs with a huge additional component: the opportunity for students to earn while they learn in their chosen career pathway program. This next level initiative will support students by enabling them to earn money while applying the skills and knowledge they learned in high school. This application of talent will ultimately strengthen our workforce, give students the ability to apply their schooling in a field they plan to pursue, and help them begin to organize their personal financial future by saving for the future. This is real education and learning in action. If the kickoff of our paid apprenticeships isn't enough, please look for major gift announcements in February and March regarding our Last Dollar Scholarship Program. You will soon hear about highly exciting and generous financial gifts to our Say Yes Niagara Falls Scholarship Endowment Fund held at the Community Foundation. Our district owes a great debt of gratitude to the Niagara Area Foundation, not only for a magnanimous financial gift, but also for their tireless work in securing additional large-scale contributions and donations. Every dollar raised privately will be placed in a secure, high-yield endowment, which will provide 2- and 4-year tuition to any Niagara Falls High School graduate who plans to attend a SUNY, CUNY, or one of the 106 Say Yes Niagara Falls colleges and universities. These are last dollar tuition payments made to all participating institutions of higher education. As we continue fundraising, students in the graduating class of 2027 may receive partial scholarships. Just ponder that for a moment. Your child will ultimately have the opportunity to attend college or university tuition-free. There are some qualifying criteria, such as how long you have been in our district, but this unique opportunity will be a difference maker for our families and students, setting them on a path to an unlimited future. Say Yes Niagara Falls Saturday Academies will continue through May. Earn while you learn meaningful apprenticeships, and ultimately last dollar scholarships certainly make this long, dark winter feel much brighter. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And our next commentary is written by Ed Adamczyk, Easier Than Bringing Peace to the Ukraine. You hear a lot about how the White House is reshaping foreign policy, domestic policy, tax policy, Washington geography, relations between countries, relations between federal agents and the residents of Minneapolis, and dozen other categories. You can disbelieve until the blowback starts, the wrecking ball hits the East Wing, and the gross receipts for the movie about the First Lady are counted. Tell me if this is true, or if Jon Stewart or maybe some wisecrack artist at CNN spread it as a Facebook rumor. When the G20 meets for a summit later this year in Miami, it will be greeted by a gold, 22-foot-tall statue of the president, holding a token meant to represent his cryptocurrency brand in his outstretched right hand, on a 10-foot-tall pedestal, and yes, you can purchase not only the currency but a small-scale replica of the statue. In true and typical style, the Ohio sculptor says he's not letting it out of his foundry until it is paid for in full. It is true. Not surprised, right? We can joke around all day about where the sculpture should be permanently installed, but the current administration has a remarkable ability to flood the zone with nonsense meant to divert attention from serious issues. Gotta give them credit for that. The documentary film Melania is playing nationwide to empty seats and scalding reviews. No one wants to play the Kennedy Center, so the place is closing for 2 years of renovations, and that's a long time to renovate. There will be a mixed martial arts performance on the lawn of the White House, on the side that's not getting a ballroom installed. Meanwhile, foreign relations are unraveling as European and other countries ponder if they'll get better deals from China. Rights, both human and civil, are under upheaval, and a decidedly pro-Trump governor is poised to lead the Federal Reserve. If stock prices, inflation, the unemployment rate, or business closings are of any interest to you, prepare yourself. There is a certain amount of bravado on display, that ethos to be wild and smash things, as every day a half dozen new directives cause people to talk and wonder how they'll be affected. Something new every day. Too much every day, while fewer and fewer people regard the actions as steps forward. The most odious get canceled or scaled back at the last minute. Wall Street has a phrase for it. TACO, T-A-C-O. Trump always chickens out, but only after significant public outcry. The businesses still controlled by Trump and his relatives have arranged $1.4 billion in work since Inauguration Day. Some estimates say, and that sounds vaguely illegal. It's in the Constitution that you cannot do that. But Congress does not remember how to challenge the administrative branch of the government. Beyond money and power, the reasons a lot of people go to work in Washington, there is a style that some admire, but is a growing number of notice is becoming kind of sort of dictatorial and fascist. Most Americans, I suspect, want violent illegal aliens deported, want allies to pay a fair share of combined costs for defense, and want to see peace in Gaza and Ukraine, would approve a reduction in Iran's power in the Middle East and a general lowering of costs and tensions. But not like this. I liked Donald Trump when he was a billionaire blowhard, mouthing off to whoever would listen. When he was elected to his first term, it occurred to me that a president with ambivalence regarding political parties could genuinely be a unifier, and boy was I wrong. The recent stunt work, the directives meant more to glorify and commemorate him rather than serve the interest of the Republic, is a diversion from the real stuff, and the diversions are working. If any member of the current administration is named 100 times in the Epstein files, would it surprise you? If none were mentioned, would it surprise you more or less? What is to believe these days anyway? We know that politicians will put a positive spin on anything, and anyone alive here during the Love Canal issue of the 1970s can remind you that government officials have been known to lie. That's all we are getting these days, every day. And we'll turn now to Tom Valley's column, From the Valley. Columnist, His Story History. Next month will mark the 20th year that I've been writing this column. I never thought I'd be doing this. For most of my working life, I was a simple factory worker. Very simple, in most people's opinion. For about 25 years, I was employed at Fisher-Price Toys in Medina. I worked with some wonderful people there. Today, when I see or hear from any of them, it's like touching base with family. There's a bond, a kinship of sorts, that we forged over those years. Perhaps that's the way it is everywhere. I don't know, but that's the way it certainly was with me. Back then, Fisher-Price had a monthly newspaper/letter that was basically harmless gossip about each department. In fact, I had the privilege of selecting its name, Toy Line Express, and designing the banner that adorned the top of the page. I think I won a blue tuna fish sandwich that had sat in a vending machine for several months for my efforts. I also volunteered to write and represent our group, the Quality Control Department, in the newsletter. And for some reason, I decided to list my name as Bic Papermate alongside my contribution. When people asked why, I'd replied, "It's a pen name." As well as the usual drivel, occasionally I'd do some cartoon work. If I may elaborate, one time I drew a caricature of one of the bosses, a great guy who was known for his long-winded conversations. I had him giving a speech to the workers. The single-paneled cartoon showed the backs of the workers in an auditorium-like setting, with the speaker standing at a podium on stage facing them. And, modesty aside, the drawing turned out good. It was an easily recognizable portrayal of the person giving the speech. As any caricaturist will tell you, some people are much easier to do than others. This guy was a piece of cake to draw. The cartoon caption had him saying, "Let me know if I've been talking too long." That was it. Maybe you had to be there, but everyone got the joke. It was hilarious. Okay, everyone thought it was so-so. Actually, I was the only one who understood what it meant. But I wasn't quite done. I had a plan. The following month, I drew the same cartoon, only this time the audience members' hair had grown significantly longer and there were cobwebs showing from one head to another. The new caption was, "Seriously, let me know if I've been talking too long." Okay, a few chuckles. I'll take that. On the third month, he was still at the lectern talking, but the audience members were now all skeletons with bones dispersed all over the place. Mice sat perched atop skulls and on the backs and arms of the auditorium seats. The caption now read, "And in conclusion," moving on, I like doing cartoons because I get to blend art with humor. And like any hobby, it acts as a relief valve, letting everyday stress out the door. I developed two characters, both fish, by the names of Carp and Seaweed. And whenever I was hit with a comical muse, a frustration or whatever, I'd vent that through these two fish. It soothed and scratched whatever itch was clawing at my brain. My personal do-it-yourself shrink. Anyhow, a friend of mine, the late John Grimes, owner of Curvin's Newsstand, asked if I'd do a cartoon strip with the fish in a weekly ad he had in the Medina Journal-Register newspaper. So I did. Unbeknownst to most, I'd slip upside down into the seaweed at the bottom, a message that would never have been published had it been seen. Shame on me. Long story short, while personally dropping off the cartoon/ad at the newspaper office almost 20 years ago, I was asked by the editor if I had my column ready. Apparently, he had mistaken me for someone else. I told him I wasn't a columnist. Unbelievably, he said, "Do you want to be?" So I went home and wrote 3 columns. I brought them back and plopped them on his desk. He called me the next day and said he liked them. That was the start of my writing career. So, bottom line, blame him, not me. And by no mere coincidence, shortly after my columns were published, the Journal Register folded up and went out of business. Trust me, I've had to draw hundreds of cartoons just to deal with that enormous sense of guilt. But because I'm running out of space here, I want to warn you that in the month of March, I'll be revisiting some of those earlier columns right here in this space. For that, you can blame me. For now, that's the way it looks from Bic Papermate. Moving on now, lawmakers push for data center moratorium. A pair of Democratic state lawmakers are looking to temporarily halt the development of data centers across the state. On Friday, State Senator Liz Krueger from Manhattan and State Assemblymember Anna Kellis from Ithaca introduced legislation to establish a temporary moratorium on the siting and permitting of new data centers in New York. Krueger and Kellis suggested the accelerated pace of data center development is outstripping existing planning, regulatory, and environmental review frameworks in a joint press release. They also noted that such large-scale facilities place substantial new demand on local electricity and water services, often resulting in higher rates being paid by neighboring residential and commercial customers. Their legislation calls for a 3-year pause on new data center development, while the State Department of Environmental Conservation completes what they described as a comprehensive environmental impact statement, evaluating the industry's current and projected effects on energy use, electricity rates, water resources, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, and electronic waste. Massive data centers are gunning for New York, and right now we are completely unprepared. When one of these energy-guzzling facilities comes to town, they drive up utility prices and have significant negative impacts on the environment and the community. And they have little to no positive impact on the local economy, Krueger said. New Yorkers are suffering from an affordability crisis and a climate crisis, and data centers are going to make both of those much harder to deal with. It's time to hit the pause button, give ourselves some breathing room to adopt strong policies on data centers, and avoid getting caught in a bubble that will burst and leave New York utility customers footing a huge bill. Under the proposed legislation, the DEC would also be required to establish regulations to mitigate these negative impacts. The bill also directs the Public Service Commission to report on the cost impacts of data centers on all other ratepayers, and issue any orders necessary to ensure those costs are fully borne by data center developers, not regular New Yorkers and other businesses. Both Krueger and Kellis said the pause is intended to ensure New York fully understands the cumulative impacts of the rapidly expanding data center industry. Their legislation follows support in December from more than 50 New York groups that believe a full moratorium is warranted before any new data center projects are approved and construction begins. The effort was coordinated by the environmental group Food and Water Watch, the first organization in the country to call for a full nationwide moratorium. Data centers are expanding rapidly across the country and in New York, often with significant demands on our electric grid, water resources, and waste systems, and with real consequences for energy bills and climate pollution. New York already has strong environmental and climate laws, but those laws only work if we take the time to understand cumulative impacts and regulate accordingly. This legislation creates a responsible pause so the state can complete a comprehensive assessment and put clear, data-driven standards in place, ensuring that any future development is aligned with our climate goals and the long-term health and economic stability of New Yorkers, said Assemblymember Anna Kellis. The bill requires approval by a majority of the members in both the Senate and the Assembly and Governor Kathy Hochul. It comes at a time when Niagara Falls Redevelopment has proposed building a $1.5 billion data center on land it owns in the city. Plans for the project, which the company calls the Niagara Digital Campus, have been presented for consideration to members of the city's planning board. However, they have not been formally approved. Despite the plans, Mayor Robert Restaino has publicly questioned whether NFR is serious about moving the project forward to construction. It is unclear if or how NFR's project would be impacted by the proposed statewide data center moratorium. NFR spokesperson James Haggerty did not respond to a request for comment. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. And now we'll take a look at Anna Marie Linneberry's column, Niagara Discoveries. Unusual place names in Newfane and Niagara. Continuing our look at unusual place names in Niagara County, this week let's move on to the towns of Newfane and Niagara, as well as the city of Niagara Falls. These towns don't have as many localities with uncommon names, but they do have places with interesting stories to tell. The creek that runs through Newfane and empties into Lake Ontario is now known as 18 Mile Creek, but on some maps from the early 19th century, it is identified as Willink's Creek. Maps made as late as 1830 use that name. One map uses both names. Wilhelm Willink was one of the Dutch investors in the Holland Land Company who hoped to profit from the sale of land here. A town named for him was once part of Niagara County from 1808 to 1821, before Erie County was split off. It then became part of Erie County and was later developed into several towns in the southern part of that county. Willink's name all but disappeared, except for a short street in West Seneca. By coincidence, there is an 18-mile creek in Erie County that empties into Lake Erie, between the towns of Hamburg and Evans. Some sources have referred to that waterway as Willink's Creek. The community at the mouth of Niagara County's Willink's Creek also changed names. Burgoyne Kemp arrived at the creek that meets the lake in 1808, and for much of the first half of the 19th century, the settlement clustered around there was known as Kempville. On the 1852 Niagara County map, it is called Alcott. There are sources that attribute different men with the surname Alcott as the person who the village was named for. Chauncey Alcott was not one of them, but there is no definitive reason for that designation. Another area that is something of a mystery in Newfane is Drake Settlement, after which a road is named. Not much is known about the origins of this community situated between the village of Newfane, aka Charlotte, and the hamlet of Burt, on the east side of Lockport-Alcott Road. A few scant pieces of evidence, mostly obituaries of his relatives, state that Isaac Drake, who lived from 1788 to 1867, was one of the first to reside in the area that is approximately at the intersection of Drake Settlement and Fuller Roads in about 1821. Isaac and his wife, Elizabeth Van Tassel, had several sons, a few of whom were born in the Drake Settlement in the 1820s. However, Isaac Drake did not put roots down there, and he and a few of his sons moved to Michigan before 1850. Drake died in Michigan in 1867. There are no Drakes in Drake Settlement on the 1852 Niagara County map. At least 3 sons, William, Henry, and John, did stay in Newfane after their father left. In 1850, Henry was living on Main Street, and John was on McKee Street, both in the village of Charlotte. William's exact location could not be found, but comparing the other names on the 1850 and 1855 censuses, he most likely lived in the same general area as his brothers. Henry and John eventually followed their father and brothers to Michigan, leaving William the only Drake of that family left in Newfane. He died September 15, 1881, and is buried in Corwin Cemetery along with his wife and several of his children. Unlike some places where names change as new people settled in the area, Drake Settlement has kept the original stamp it was given over 200 years ago. On the 1938 Niagara Frontier Planning Map, in addition to the cities, towns, and villages, there are places listed under hamlets. Many of these hamlets are familiar communities, such as Appleton in Newfane, named for the abundance of apples grown in that area, but many of them are suffixed with the word subdivision. We tend to think that suburbia was something that emerged in the 1950s with the post-war prosperity and the baby boom, but many municipalities were already planning housing expansion in the 1930s. The town of Niagara was one of those locales that had numerous subdivisions, either in existence, being developed, or intended for the future. Some of these were never actually developed or were changed from their original plan. Most had names that would not be considered unusual, but a few are a bit different. One is Prosperity Acres. It was located on the east side of Military Road of the intersection with Packard Road, extending over to Lockport Road. Who would not want to live in a place called Prosperity Acres? That development is still largely intact, except for some commercial properties now fronting Military Road. The other unusual subdivision name is Recovery Acres. This is also on the east side of Military Road, but south of the above-named intersection. Recovery Road runs through the development, which is much smaller than Prosperity Acres. Why it was given that name? What was recovered? If anyone knows, please contact the History Center. The final odd name place is very well known, particularly to those in Niagara Falls, but many do not know the origin of the name. Echota was developed in 1894 as a planned community by the Niagara Falls Power Company for workers housing. It is located on the west side of Hyde Park Boulevard, north of Buffalo Avenue, with streets assigned the letters A through E. A later housing development on the east side of Hyde Park Boulevard was not part of the original Echota footprint. Designed by world-famous architect Stanford White in Queen Anne and Georgian styles, the 67 dwellings were built as singles, duplexes, or row houses for a total of 112 units. Each Echota residence included indoor plumbing and electricity. Maple and elm trees were planted, and there were stores, a fire department, and a school. Some of the houses in Echota have been restored. The word Echota is a Cherokee term for place of refuge. Echota is considered a unique architectural neighborhood in the city of Niagara Falls. And we'll take a look now at the column written by Douglas Demedian, The Great Outdoors. Doug Demedian is an outdoorsman and nature photographer who resides in Medina. Contact him at 585-798-4022. When winter weather forecasts fade, instincts don't. Weather conditions are a very important factor for outdoor folks. The weather influences how both wildlife and humans act. We all love those bright blue skies, fair temperatures, and low winds. We depend on the weathermen for predictions. Wildlife seems to have a built-in system that tells them when it will be fair and when conditions are going to get nasty. If you have bird feeders, you will notice that there is always increased activity at them just before bad weather moves in. If you are a birder, then you want fair weather so that you are comfortable out there searching when the birds are active. Waterfowl hunters like bad weather, as it is not only gets the birds moving on their migrations, it gets them looking for protected areas to avoid the storm, especially high winds. Just taking a hike in the great outdoors is a great way to enjoy nature, but no one likes to do it in adverse weather. Muskrat and beaver trappers hope for cold conditions to freeze the waterways so they can get out in the marshes and set their traps. Deer hunters like ground covering snow so they can more easily determine where the deer are moving and position themselves in a good spot to intercept them. As a nature photographer, I keep a close eye on weather conditions. Generally, I can find something of interest to capture in most weather conditions, but knowing the morning and evening conditions should strongly influence the timing of my travels. Well, I may as well be honest. I'll grab the camera and head out no matter what the conditions are. For some subject matter, I prefer overcast days, such as when I want to photograph flowers. I love doing flight shots of birds, and for that I need bright sunlight for fast shutter speeds to freeze those wings. And I need to know the wind conditions. Recording those beautiful iridescent colors on hummingbirds and wood ducks also requires bright light. Sunrises and sunsets are other favorite subjects matter of mine, and both keep me guessing, as I really never know when Mother Nature is going to give me a spectacular sky. In these cases, I want to be out there before the sun comes up or just after it sets, as these times give the best chances of great color. So we all check the weather predictions before planning our outdoor adventures. I always check my computer in the evening for the expected conditions in my area for the next morning and evening. We all do that, but it seems this method has not been working out very well lately. We have all headed out because the weatherman said it would be a great day, only to find out differently. More than once, the weatherman has told me there would be bright sunlight, and when I got there, it was the opposite. I have worked out a method that is much more predictable. Years of watching the skies have proven it very reliable. A good example of this was just last week. One morning, when the weatherman had informed me the prior evening would be heavily overcast starting at daybreak. I got up early anyway, checked the forecast again, and found that it has not changed. But I was out of bed, and I had that instinct to head out. So I did. Boy, was that weatherman's prediction off. It was cold, but the sky looked like it might be bright with some possible color. So I headed for one of my favorite sunrise areas and found magic was in the air. Right where the sun would be coming up, there was a bright orange shaft rising from the horizon right into the sky. It was a spectacular sight. It was a spectacular sight to capture and a rare event to capture. Then, just off to the side of that shaft was the base of a rainbow. I was running around frantically, trying to get various interpretations of the event. Lucky for me, it lasted a long time, and the camera was smoking. When the show was over, the sky was still basically open for quite some time, and my attention turned to other subject matter. But eventually the clouds did move in. My weather method worked perfectly, while the weatherman's was way off course. This method has been honed over the years and works much of the time for me. My secret, and I hope it works for you, is just get out there, no matter what the prediction, and see for yourself. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from current issues of the Niagara Gazette. We read from the Niagara Gazette every Saturday at 11 a.m. Your reader has been Will Evans. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of the Dunkirk Observer. Following that at 1 o'clock, we have a reading of some of our Northtown Bee papers, including Amherst, Clarence, Cheektowaga, Lancaster, and Depew. And then at 2 o'clock, we have the Southtown Bees, which includes Orchard Park, the Hamburg Sun, the East Aurora, and West Seneca papers. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio Reading broadcasts daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to people who are blind or have a print disability and are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. From broadcast studios at 1199 Harlem Road, Radio Reading continues our almost 40-year tradition of award-winning service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,